Hey, this is Philip Van der Vossen with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, and I am on a road trip right now back to South Carolina where I live in a brand new car. This is a 2023 Kia Sportage. I actually just flew here yesterday to Baltimore in order to buy this for my wife. So why did I have to fly here to Maryland in order to buy this car? And why did my wife choose the Kia Sportage as her next vehicle? You're going to find out in this video. So I've got another 6.5 hours or so on the road, so I'm going to strap in and tell you guys that story. So don't worry, it won't be that long. Okay, so we're on the road now, and as I mentioned, this vehicle is actually for my wife, and she's never actually bought a new car in her life. Actually, she's never bought any car in her life. She's 44 years old, and she has inherited previous cars, so she's either been gifted or inherited previous cars, and she drives them forever. So the last car she actually has had since 2011. So I believe I'm trying to remember, right before we moved to South Carolina, it actually got totaled. Somebody ran into it when I was on the street, parked on the street. So that was about 2 years ago. So she drove it for probably about 10 years that she drove that vehicle. And it was old when she got it, and then, you know, she drove for 10 years and then it got totaled. So this is the first time she's ever had a chance to shop for a car in her life. So what we actually did was I started with her, and I recommend all people do this actually, is if you can't go to an auto show, I recommend go someplace like CarMax. So CarMax is great because they have a bunch of different vehicles there, they have a ton of selection, and most CarMaxes these days, now we're past COVID, they leave all the doors unlocked. So you can literally walk around the lot and you can check out all the different vehicles they have and sit in them and see if you're comfortable. So, you know, my wife and I are a little bit larger, so, you know, being comfortable in the car was one of our primary concerns. So we did that. We went on she wanted a crossover specifically because we have bad roads in our area. So, and we have a lot of flooding, coastal flooding, because we live at the beach. So we have the marsh floods and the ocean floods, and there's lots of sand in the road and terrible roads. So because of that, she wanted something a little bit higher, a little bit more rugged than a sedan. So she's looking at crossovers. So we're looking at compact crossovers. And so what we did, we went to CarMax. She tried them all out. She sat in probably 12 or 15 different cars, and we actually went 2 different times. And I can tell you that the first time we went, the salesman talked to her for like 5 minutes, maybe introduced her, let her know what the process was there. And then we were free on the lot to go do what we wanted to do. We spent about 2 hours at CarMax total, and we spent about 5 minutes talking to a salesman. So it was great. We could just walk around, figure out, okay, which cars were, you know, comfortable for her. We didn't drive anything at CarMax, actually. We literally just walked around the parking lot and tried them all out, checked out the interior, sat in them, see if they fit her needs, basically. So she narrowed her choices down to 4 vehicles when we were at CarMax. So we had the Mazda CX-5, the Bronco Sport, and the Hyundai Tucson, and the Kia Sportage. So I think what you'll find is and of course at CarMax they're all used cars. And if you've done any shopping for used cars recently, you'll know that they're pretty expensive, especially if you're dealing with like late model, recent model cars. And so what I found is just looking around the lot, if you looked at anything from maybe 2020 and above, the prices on those used vehicles were probably going to be at or above the prices you could pay for a new vehicle. So since she wanted to get something fairly recent, originally she was interested in buying a used car, but she wanted to get something recent. And so what I told her is that, well, as long as you want something relatively new, we might as well just go buy a new car. So what we did was use CarMax to figure out, okay, which 4 cars is she interested in, which 4 brands is she interested in. We narrowed it down, and then from there we went to the different dealerships. And so, you know, with different dealerships in our town to see what vehicles they had and which ones suited her needs. Okay, so the question is, why did Carla, my wife, choose the Kia Sportage as her next vehicle? So, as I said, we went to the different dealerships. She drove all 4 of the vehicles. She drove them, actually we went multiple times to some of the dealerships and drove them. And I told her basically just ignore the price. You know, the vehicles she's looking at, they're all in the same segment. They're all relatively in the same ballpark for price. And the prices in South Carolina I found were actually pretty high right now. So I told her, you know, don't worry about the trims and the price. Just worry about which vehicle, you know, makes you happiest. Which vehicle you're comfortable in. Now, she did, one of her primary factors for a vehicle is that she did want to get a blue color, which is a bit limiting when you're shopping for sure. But I kind of agree with her. Like in terms of color, you know, I like walking up to my vehicle, and I have an orange vehicle, so I'm, you know, obviously very biased when it comes to color. But when you walk up to your vehicle, you know, I want it to make me happy. So when I walk up to my car, you know, it's orange H3 still makes me happy, even though I've had it for like 12 years. So she wanted a blue vehicle, and if she had, you know, settled for a black or silver or something or other, it just wouldn't have the same emotional effect on her when she drove it, when she walked up to it. So, you know, some people think it's silly to focus on color, but I personally think it's a very valid thing when you're shopping for cars, is what colors are they offered in, and whether you like those colors, whether those colors, you know, make you happy. So she was looking for blue, and then other factors that she had that she was looking for were fairly simple. She wanted Apple CarPlay, she wanted a backup camera. Well, everything has a backup camera these days, and almost everything has Apple CarPlay these days. She wanted power seats. That was the limiting factor when it came to trims, for the most part, because sometimes you have to go up a little bit higher in the trim levels in order to find the power seats. But those were her main things that she was looking for, and then she was looking for comfort. So I can tell you, from driving the different vehicles, the main decision factors came down to now. She had a whole spreadsheet, a whole notebook. She took all kinds of lists of different things. But the main decision points came down to her comfort driving the vehicle. I can tell you that she was more comfortable driving the Hyundai and the Kia, and actually the Mazda 2, because of the hinged gas pedal. Because it's attached to the floor and it's hinged from there, rather than the hanging down gas pedal that they have like on the Bronco Sport. The Bronco Sport gas pedals were a little bit high. So of course, you know, Jill talks a lot about, you know, adjustable pedals. Well, my wife has similar issues. If the pedals would adjust, then she could adjust the steering wheel on the seat, you know, to be more comfortable. But if the pedals are in a fixed position, then you might be limited to which vehicles she's comfortable in. So that was one factor. The other factor was the egress and ingress. The Tucson, she was actually hitting her head on the door when she got in and out, and that was bothering her to the point that basically that was what eliminated that vehicle for her. I can tell you the Mazda CX-5, one of the main factors that we eliminated that for is the infotainment system. With the dial that they have on the infotainment system, it changes the different settings, you know, choosing map or radio and everything with a dial, and the dial is located on the CX-5 is located fairly far back, and she found that uncomfortable to use. On the CX-50 they moved it forward a little bit, but on the CX-50 the I guess the arrangement of the basically the cabin down here where you keep your legs, the way it was shaped was not comfortable for her legs, the position of her legs, basically there. So just little things like that, you know, and can throw one car, you know, above or you know, below the others. So the Kia Sportage, you know, she liked the interface, she liked the comfort, she liked the egress and ingress and getting in and out. And one of the other factors she did have on her list was American vehicle. And at one point we were down to actually just the Sportage and the Bronco Sport, and she was saying, well, you know, I like the Bronco because it's American, and I told her, I was like, well, the Bronco Sport is made in Mexico, and this Kia Sportage, not the hybrid, the Kia Sportage though, is made in Georgia. So, and it's actually, I believe I looked it up, and this was the engine, the transmission for the Sportage is also made in America, and overall there's more parts are sourced from America for the Sportage than they are for the Bronco Sport. So things are a little more complicated these days than they used to be. You just look at can't just look at the badge and know what country your vehicle is mainly manufactured in. So so those were the main factors why she chose the Sportage. Like I mentioned, I told my wife that you probably just ignore the price and ignore the trims originally. So once you finally did, you know, select narrowed it down to being the Sportage, we were shopping at a dealership that had the Sportage that she liked in this blue color for both the EX and the SX. And the EX actually had everything that she wanted. It had the power seats, it had the CarPlay, it had the backup camera. And so that, you know, would have been probably enough for her. Now the MSRP on that one is about $29,000, and the $29,000 something rather. And the dealership, I'll tell you, had it marked at $34,000. So they basically were adding $5,000 to all the Kia Sportages at the dealership that we went to in South Carolina. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the way that broke down was $3,000 of that was dealer add-ons. This is what they put on every vehicle, they said. And stuff like wheel locks and a cargo thing for the back and pinstriping and protection, you know, wheels and tires, you know, road hazard protection or whatever. It's all a bunch of bullshit. Like, it's all little things that even if you know, you pay $50 here, $100 there, does not add up to $3,000. So this is apparently a practice that they do in South Carolina, from what we found in the area where we were, where all these dealerships had these packages of stuff that they put on the vehicle that you could not choose. They were there automatically. And I asked them, I said, well, what if we ordered a vehicle and had it delivered to your dealership? And they said, oh yeah, we would still put these items on your vehicle. Oh, every vehicle we sell gets these things. But in addition to that, they had also a markup of another $2,000, I believe. So that's where we went to $5,000 total. That they put on the vehicle because they said they're hard to get and blah blah blah. So I understand the market has been real crazy. It's been hard for people to get vehicles. This is a 2023, so it is a little bit harder to get because it's a brand new model. But I started looking around online and it's like, well, other places have a lot more vehicles and they don't have that charge. So I did not tell them specifically that I was gonna maybe fly someplace else and buy the car. But I did tell them, I was like, okay, well, I found the same car in Baltimore, you know, without the markup, without the $5,000 markup. And it ended up that I found actually this car, which is actually the X-Pro Prestige trim of this vehicle, which is much higher than the SX or the X, because this includes the all-wheel drive and it's also the highest trim. I found that this model was actually $1,000 below MSRP. So whereas the Kia dealership in South Carolina wanted $5,000 above MSRP, I was able to get this in Baltimore for $1,000 below MSRP. So this particular exact model of vehicle came out to like $37,200, and for an SX in South Carolina, they wanted over $38,000. So that's what kind of what I told my wife. I was like, look, I can fly to Baltimore and get us a much better car for less money than they want to sell you that SX for. So that's when the idea kind of got in my head. It's like, well, you know, at the same time we can get a, you know, all-wheel drive vehicle. And now we live in South Carolina, we don't necessarily need that. But as you may have seen from on the channel, my other vehicle is the Hummer H3. It's a 2008, and yeah, it's four-wheel drive. I've taken it off-road a lot, driven a lot in the snow, so it's got some rust issues, and it's old. But I work out of the house, so I don't put a ton of miles on it. So this is going to be, you know, our new road trip vehicle. It's going to be the vehicle that we take together when we go places with the most miles on. So when we do go on road trips in the winter and everything, then there is a possibility we're going to go north and be in the snow. Actually, not just a possibility, a probability. So that's why, you know, getting the all-wheel drive makes sense. This also actually has some nice BF Goodrich all-terrain tires on it, which I like, and it has the locking. You can lock the differential for the 50-50 split on the all-wheel drive. So it has the ability to do a little bit of mild off-roading. You can go like camping down fire roads, that type of stuff. So I liked that over just the base model. But we did try and negotiate in South Carolina, and I told him, I was like, look, I'm not playing games back and forth and stuff. Just let me know what your best price is, and if you know, then we'll go discuss it. My wife and I'll go discuss it when we eat dinner, and then we'll, you know, let you know. Okay, sorry about that. The battery died, so I'm a little bit further down the road now. But basically, I gave the dealership a chance to give me their best offer, and they came back with $3,000 off their previous price, which still put it at $2,000 above MSRP and $3,000 above the dealership that I saw with the price in Baltimore. So that's kind of the point where I said, you know, I'm going to fly to Baltimore because, first of all, I fly a lot, so I have points and I have credits and things like that. We're from Maryland, so flying to BWI Airport, you know, I know it's not a big deal. There's direct flights from where we live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, to Baltimore. Now, of course, I was a little bit concerned because of Southwest having some flight issues recently, but they got that all straightened up. So we were shopping here at the end of the year. It was the end of the month, end of the year. You figure that that's the dealership's chance to give you their best price. And just in South Carolina where we were, that was just not apparently a thing for them because they were not able to go any lower on the price. So, you know, it's what it is. The world's a lot smaller these days. You can fly someplace else. You can find a car. If you want to pay a lower price, you can find a car someplace else. You know, fly there and get it and just drive it back. So, just doing the math on it, I can tell you that I booked a flight 2 days ago, basically to fly the next day. It was only $120 direct. And you know, I probably got lucky, I guess, because there weren't a lot of people flying that day. But $120 to fly direct. I actually had a $100 credit that was expiring soon, so the flight actually technically only cost me $20. And then when I got to the airport, I took a Lyft, and the Lyft was $45, and I tipped the driver. It was very nice. I tipped the driver $10, so that was $55. And then I expect this this drive home now. I did the mileage estimate on it, and how far I have to drive, and I think it's going to cost me like $60 in gas. So 60 plus 55 plus 120. You do the math on that. That's nowhere close to being $3,000 or $6,000. So it was definitely worth it to fly to Baltimore. Now, of course, I have to do this drive back to South Carolina, but that's not a big deal. Gives me a good chance actually to break in the engine, to have a concerted road trip on this thing, and to follow the rules that they say about not revving the engine, varying your speeds, not towing, not braking too hard, being cognizant of that. It's a lot easier to do breaking in the vehicle on a long road trip than it would be if you was driving every day for the next month trying to break it in. So yeah, so like I said, I'm driving home, and my wife's gonna have a new car soon. So a couple other things I want to mention is the hybrid. There is a hybrid version of this Sportage that actually Jill has just driven recently and reviewed on the website, and there's also a plug-in hybrid. And I know definitely that the hybrid has more power, has much better gas mileage. It's not on retail prices. It's not priced all that much higher than this. It's like $1,300, $1,500. So it's actually a no-brainer if you can get a chance to get the hybrid, because it is more powerful, more responsive, and it does a lot better gas mileage. And with Kia, you get the 10-year warranty on the powertrain, includes the battery and the hybrid engine and everything. So hybrid motor. So I would definitely have done that, except for this is a new model year, and it is tough to get those. So there's not a lot of hybrids out there, and even the dealership in Baltimore that I was dealing with, they only had a couple hybrids on the lot, and they were still marked up, so they were putting markups on those. And other dealerships I looked at were putting even higher markups. So the hybrid right now, like I said, so it's tough to get. If you can find it, it might be tough to find the exact trim that you're looking for and the exact color you're looking for. And again, it's going to be priced higher with markups. So that is basically why we didn't end up getting the hybrid. If it was important to us, we would have waited, probably could have waited a few months and then found more availability to get that hybrid. But where we live, we're not driving on 95. Well, so I'm driving on 95 right now, but we're not driving on big highways very often. And so the higher speeds and the ability to merge more power is not as, we're not in the hills very much either. We're not in the mountains and everything very much either. So more power is not as much of a concern for us. And we put relatively minimal miles in our cars. So the gas, it's better ideal to have better gas mileage, but it's not a big deal breaker for us. Also, gas is cheaper where we live than it is in other parts of the country. so the hybrid wasn't primary concern. But if you're looking at the Sportage, I do definitely recommend you look at that hybrid. So like I said, Jill has an article about that, and Jill has a video on the website about the Sportage at night, and I think we have at least one other video on the Sportage. So I didn't focus too much today on what the Sportage gives you in terms of interior, exterior, and drivability and everything, since we have previous videos on that. I just want to focus on our process of why we chose this vehicle, and why I had to go to Baltimore to get it, just because of the way I guess the market is right now. I think the market in general is changing, it's shifting, and might be shifting in some markets faster than it's shifting in others. So for our experience, it's different in Maryland than it is in South Carolina. So if you don't like the price in your local area, shop around and see what else you can find elsewhere. For a quick plane trip away, you might be able to find a much better deal. So thank you guys always for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below, and we'll see you next time down the road.